the stream, but I'll start in a second. I'm ready to hit record. So you're not going to watch the Star Trek, but there's something you'll appreciate about Star Trek Picard, like you specifically. In the show,
the captain is like, "Hey, why are we doing this?"
Oh, no. So there's the Romulans, right? I'm sure you've heard of the Romulans.
I know those are the name of an alien in Star Trek.
Yep. So their deal is they are like secretive and like secret police. Like imagine East Germany / Imperial Rome in space. Like that's their deal.
So they're bad though.
They're the bad. They're quote bad guys.
Is there no good alien?
Oh, so over time they're allies of the Federation now. Like they're like things change.
Okay.
But anyway, like the Klingons are good with the Federation too. Like they're like all in an alliance together.
Okay.
Anyway, so their like character traits in the show are that they're all spies, they're all secretive, like they hide everything. In Picard, there's a cult of Romulans, and they're the cult of radical honesty. They will always tell the truth no matter what, no matter who it pisses off, all the time.
That's not really much of a cult. You would say that the rest of the Romulans are the cult, and those
that's how they see it. So there's a character who in the entire show is just like, I'll tell the truth all the time, and it always causes problems, and everyone's mad, and he's like, what do you want me to do? It's truth.
Yeah, deal with it.
We thought of you.
That's right.
All right. I have hit record.
Boop. Boop.
Ah, the listener likes my beard. All right. I was sharing beard tips on Twitter with a beard guy.
Okay.
All right. Everything looks good. Nothing broke with the updates. Let's just do this. It's Monday, October 24th, 2022. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geek Nights. Tonight, we are going to tell you how to not suck at smartphone security. Fuck, do I have an opening bit of anything?
I have an opening bit.
All right, you can go. Go for it.
All right. Recently, I did an opening bit, and I talked about how Phantom of the Opera was closing, so we went to see it again, at least for me again. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Right. So I hadn't been, much like Phantom of the Opera, which I hadn't seen since 1990X. Right? I hadn't been to the opera since 1990X when we went on a middle school band class field trip.
Last opera I saw was in the year 2000. No, 1999. And we went and saw Gotterdammerung. And goddamn do I never want to see that again.
Okay, so in middle school, we saw Romeo and Juliet, which is all right, but yeah, we went to the opera again, and we went on the convenient time for us, which was friggin' Saturday at 1:00, which is when the old people go to the opera. All old people. It was like going to a Cracker Barrel at 4 p.m.
I feel like there are exactly two audiences at operas in America. Audience one, old people who have some money. Audience two, high school kids on a field trip.
Oh no, there were other young art appreciators there. You know. But anyway, we went to see the new opera, at least at the Metropolitan Opera, which is Medea, which I didn't really know the story of, but it's basically Jason, or in Italian, Giasone, as in Jason and the Argonauts Jason, that Jason, right? You know, when he's out adventuring on the Argo with his Argonauts, right? Medea, the sorceress lady, helps him out, right? And they have babies, and they're having a good time, right?
Yeah.
But the opera starts out, he's back in Corinth, I think Corinth, right?
Yeah, I think so. I hope I'm not wrong. It's been, last time I thought about Medea was high school.
Yeah, and he's there, and he's marrying the king's daughter. And the king's daughter is like, I'm worried about this. She's like, I love this dude, but I think there's going to be trouble, especially from that Medea lady. So they're all getting married, and Medea shows up, and she's like, what the fuck is this bullshit? You cheating on me after all I did for you, asshole? Right? And they're like, get out of here. You're causing trouble. Right? You know, the king's like, you're making a scene. I'm going to exile you. Get out of here. You're lucky I didn't just murder you. And then she's like, please, all right, I'll give up on Jason. He clearly doesn't want me anymore. let me see my children, right? Those are my children too. And, it's like, I'm never going to see them again. Let me stay for one day. Let me see my children. They're like, all right, you can stay one day and see your children. And she's like, haha, I'm evil and I will get revenge now.
Fuck y'all, and everything burns down is what I remember.
Pretty much, right? She poisons the lady who's going to marry Jason and then kills her own kids. The end.
I don't remember any of the music from that one. Most of the operas I remember.
On Spotify. It's
yeah.
What I heard on Spot. It's like, first of all, the people performing at the Met, right? The orchestra. You could not fucking. You might as well have just gone to Spotify and pressed play, right? That's what they are, right? It's like, you think it's like, are they just playing a recording? It's like you'd look and it's like, nope, they're down there playing instruments. Is you sure it's not a recording? But yeah, the opera's a fucking thing, right? It's like it's like they had this giant curtain, right? And it's like you look at it, it's got this Medea's face on it. And I was sitting there looking at it, and I'm thinking...
The posters, I've always looked like that from what I remember from high school.
Yeah, I'm looking at this curtain. It's fucking enormous, because the opera stage isn't like your usual stage. It's tall, right? Really tall. It's probably taller than it is wide, right? And it's as wide as a normal stage. It's this enormous curtain, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, that curtain is one sheet of material, whatever material it is. It's got this, picture on it. That was clearly a painting. It's like, well, somebody painted the painting. They might have painted it digitally. They might have painted it small and it got blown up, right? But if they did it that way, how did they print something that big? Right? I'm like, there might be a printer on Earth that's that big that I don't know about, or some printing technique where it's folded over or something, that I.
Oh God, there's a term for it. I looked it up a long time ago when I was trying to do some stuff for Kineticon. There's like a type of printing, or like a class of printing of, I need to print something that's so big it's not like it's special and normal, and there's a small number of companies who are good at it.
Than like outside billboard big, right?
Yep.
I guess there might be something that prints those like big vinyl billboards for the outside that might be able to have done this one, but like if you put this outside, it would probably be the biggest banner in Times Square. Yeah. It's so large, right? And I'm like, did somebody just lay that on the ground in a large room and paint it?
I mean, possibly.
It's possible, right? If that's, I'm not saying that is the truth, right? But if that is the truth, right? Jesus Christ. like what, they're probably going to be doing this opera for many, many years and reusing it, but holy shit. It's like,
right?
It's like, the opera is like, only just a few hundred years ago, that was the greatest entertainment option on Earth. There was no video game. There was, there was book, I guess. Right? There was no movie. There was no rock concert. There was symphony. Right? But the opera was symphony plus singing plus acting. Right? You had plays, but this is all. It was like the triple threat. It's like all the best entertainment we have invented all together, all at the same time. And it's like, the Broadway play. I talked about how much of a pain in the ass that is to do that. Right? Every day, almost every day, sometimes twice a day, right? The opera is a bigger pain in the ass.
So imagine if you were...
And they do it much less often. Right?
Imagine if you were the performers in the French opera, like back in the day. Because back then, the crowds would not fucking even look at you, and they would just be talking loudly over the opera the entire time. It was just a social event, and the entire opera was kind of just in the background.
And also, the other thing is this particular opera, right? It's not a well-balanced part distribution, right? It's like once Medea shows up, it's like it's almost a one-person show. Don
Giovanni, a lot of it is just Don Giovanni singing about Don Giovanni.
Right. It's like there's some other people, but it's like mostly Medea. Like she's good more than half of the, right? It says one person has to sing loud enough for everyone in the opera hall to hear for couple hours, right? And it's like, why is the ticket that much money? That's why. Because who's the fuck is going to do that for less money? What a pain in the ass. But if you've never gone to the opera, just pick one and go. It doesn't really matter.
Yep. I'm thinking what I actually really want to go see is one of the Italian operas. Like, let's get some Rossini. I got to see what's going on.
Those are more fun.
Yeah. like Tancredi or Barbara Seville, or I can't name any other Rossinis off the top of my head.
Verdi. Any of the Verdi ones.
But all right, I guess we just get into the news. So
Yep.
there's a bunch of news around KakaoTalk, and
So if people don't know, in Korea and other parts of Asia, there's a company, Kakao, Kaokao, right? And their messenger app, KakaoTalk, is the messenger app. It is like the number one deal there, right? So forget your Facebook messengers and your WeChats and your, what's it called, WhatsApps.
yep.
and
You think back, like if you're as old as us, think back to like when there was only AIM and ICQ. Now, imagine if literally everyone in America used AIM and ICQ back then, and there was nothing else.
Yeah, it's like they do have some other messengers that are somewhat popular, like Line and some others, and people use iMessage, I guess.
Well, they're more popular now because of this news.
Yeah. But KakaoTalk was the number one messenger. It's a big deal.
So there was a ridiculous outage, and I don't even have all the details. Like, I'm going to link to some news stories,
We
but
don't speak the languages, so it's hard to read all the articles.
yep, and the articles in English are on variously not great websites, and also
And not giving lots of technical details that we would like.
Yep, exactly. So I've dug around as best I can. I'm going to link to a bunch of stories around the details. But basically, a bunch of things happened all at once. As best I can tell, there was a data center outage, possibly caused by something with the batteries. So, like, there was a fire, and there's a data center outage for KakaoTalk. So it went down. That going down is kind of like the equivalent of if, well, it's not anymore, because if the phone system went down in the US, a lot of people wouldn't notice if their cell phone data still worked. So,
Yeah, but like, imagine if all SMS stopped working. It's
Yep.
like, I guess iMessage would keep working.
there was an SMS outage many years ago that was like a day long. So imagine if that happened now. So
Anyway.
KakaoTalk went down, and there were a bunch of follow-ups to that. So one, they appear to have lost, according to reporting, as many as 2 million users who jumped ship to mostly Line and Telegram, and seem to have not gone back to KakaoTalk. Like, people were rattled by the fact that this went down, because it was
That's
literally
also a large part of the user base, because the population of like South Korea isn't that large.
exactly. So the problem was most people only use this. So it went down. Like, if Twitter went down today, there are a lot of people.
It's 52 million. So
Yup. So 2 out of 52. So imagine it, like, if Twitter went down hard, there are hundreds of people who I kind of know or do know who the only way I really have to contact them that is like present is Twitter DMs or adding them. So I basically just lose contact with them, or I have to scramble to see, like, do I have their email address? Do I even have another way to contact this person? And for some people, I just don't. So
I back up my Twitter regularly, so I'd at least have a record of all the, like,
oh yeah, I got that.
people
But like,
following and
do I have another way to contact some of those people? Not necessarily. So a lot of people only used KakaoTalk. So even if those people start using KakaoTalk again when it's back, this is dangerous to KakaoTalk. I'm just going to keep saying KakaoTalk because
You really like that name, don't you?
there's a reason that I'll share in the stinger at the end of the show that you will never have encountered and will not care about. It's a deeply
Is it a
inside joke.
about the word cacao.
Yes, it is, but you will never encountered this, nor will you be
About
interested in
chocolate
it.
or cocaine?
Neither. It is about safe words and sex.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So,
I thought butterscotch was the word you want to go for.
depends. So anyway, KakaoTalk goes down, and a lot of people only use KakaoTalk. So now those people have had to put forth the effort to set up alternative means of communication with key people like their family, and coordinated this. So now those people, even if they go back to using KakaoTalk, have an alternative that they've already set up. So like, if Twitter goes down, I could send a Discord or an email to like Daryl Surratt or Mike Toole, because I have put forth the effort to make sure I have a way to contact people who I care about in some way. That is dangerous to KakaoTalk.
To those people.
Yeah. But KakaoTalk is in danger because a lot of its popularity has relied upon the fact that it's the only game in town for most people. The easiest way to get people to switch platforms is to have them already using multiple platforms. And then if one of those platforms crosses them for the last time, they've already gotten all their friends to also use a second platform. The move is easier.
Now, the real problem here is that KakaoTalk has this feature where you can make one login, right? Just one login, but you can have multiple identities, right? So you don't need to like do like on Reddit where you make like throwaway accounts.
Yep.
Right?
Or like Twitter. I have several Twitter accounts. They're just completely independent of each other.
Log into your several Twitter accounts actually with one login.
Oh yeah, they're all in TweetDeck too. Like it's
still separate accounts, but they're sort of linked. On Kakao, you can make like identities, right? Sort of like the way you make Netflix profiles for different people in the house.
Now, there's some context you all need to know that sounds like an obvious, easy feature, but it is different and special, specifically in South Korea, in ways that are about to become very important when we get to the third part of this story. Yeah. KakaoTalk only even introduced this feature in 2020. It's a new feature. So, in Korea, if you want to do pretty much anything online, we learned about this at RIT trying to play like a handful of Korean online games in like the early 2000s from a friend of ours. You need to have basically the Korean equivalent of a social security number.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you actually need that for KakaoTalk, but it's possible.
But you need it for a lot of online things in Korea generally.
Things you do need it for online, yes. And also they have, I think they use it to identify people who do things online because, there are, legal consequences for posting shitty things online. If you go onto like a news story in Korea and post comments and like start slandering and libeling or saying nasty, mean things about celebrities, like they can actually sue you and win.
Yep.
The current laws there. Right?
And that is a
identify you. Right? So,
there are good and extremely bad and dangerous aspects of that. It is a mixed bag, to be sure.
Now, obviously, if you go onto some other service like a 4chan equivalent, that's not going to happen. But if you go on to like the New York Times in the U.S. has a comment section. If you go to the equivalent in Korea, they're going to know who you are if you comment there. You can't write bad things there.
Yep. That's a mixed bag. That's not the topic of the show, but it is not all great that this is so tightly controlled in Korea. So people would make alternate profiles in KakaoTalk to separate aspects of their lives.
Yeah. My family identity would just say Scott, and then I would have a friend one, like a Boo the Ghost, and then a different one. Maybe I'd make one just for talking to hockey people, the little NES hockey man.
And you could like set the visibility and all these to be different, like pretty good feature. Supposedly,
on each server, you can have a different name and a different, emoji profile photo image guy, but it's all linked to like the same Discord ID though if they want to DM you.
So supposedly, and I say supposedly because there is not a lot of good English language reporting on this, as part of this outage, tons of people were able to see all of the identities of other people that were previously hidden from them. So this could be innocuous.
So if Rim had an extra profile that he was using for, I don't know, secret.
Well, maybe benign first. Let's say I had one just for Overwatch. Like I had one just my Overwatch friends. Now all my Overwatch friends are like, oh, that's Rim, the Geek Nights guy? Huh. And meanwhile, all of you are like, whoa, Rim knows all these Overwatch people. Okay, whatever. But say Joey Jojo Shabadoo is cheating on his husband and has a separate account for Tinder meetings. Let's say someone who is gay has an alternate account to sidestep the fact that their family's not cool with that. Let's say a celebrity has an account to have normal conversations with people outside of the spotlight.
Maybe somebody who is a politician is actually pretending to be in that party and is as a they're talking. Maybe someone who's a spy, hopefully a real spy, wouldn't be using KakaoTalk for their secure communication.
Oh my God! Next week on Thursday, I'm going to talk about the spy news that broke today. I got to read more before I say anything about it, but it's a big goddamn deal.
Anyway,
did you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah. The cool part about that, and I'll just leave it, but it's just so cool, is the flex of the U.S. intelligence community by saying out loud in public that they got him via American-paid double agents.
Oh, hopefully those double agents are retired now.
Yeah, well, you're not in that Discord channel where we're talking about this, but there's a lot of interesting ramifications of what just happened there.
Anyway. So yeah, this KakaoTalk thing blew up. It's not good.
Yep. This outage, independent of all these other factors, so KakaoTalk is already in trouble from earlier this year because they make a lot of money with in-app purchases, and Google finally said, yo, we want to cut or we're kicking you off of Android. That happened in July, and it escalated. There's a bunch of lawsuits, and they capitulated, which is hurting their revenue big time because now Google's going to take a cut of everything. And even worse, there seem to be indications that in Korea now, the equivalent of antitrust is happening, going after them because they're so big and so monopolistic, and because this outage has exposed how dangerous that is.
Oh yeah, that's that's how the whole world works. People are reactionary and not proactive, right?
But in this case, it might be we should be proactive.
Yeah, I mean, reasonable people have constantly, throughout history, raised warnings, and they're always treated as, like wackos, right? Like, what are you worried about? Stop raising all, it's like, and then they turn out to be right, and it's like,
So there is a problem that I've experienced firsthand because I've used these apps like Grab in a lot of Asia, a lot of Africa, where there'll be a country where there's one app that basically literally does everything. Like, you use the same app to order groceries and to hire a cab and to arrange a flight and to chat with your mom and to look for sex. Like, everything's just in one fucking app. So that app has incredible power and an effective monopoly because it's very sticky to have someone in that kind of ecosystem. The United States and Europe have largely avoided this for very different reasons. Europe has extreme regulations that sometimes even actually probably go too far. And the US has entrenched but also incompetent companies like Google and Facebook. So they've always wanted to make the app that does everything, but they have failed to do so in their own capitalist shithole. So
each one of those companies has succeeded to make one app that does something. So you have to have one app from each company. You need Amazon for shopping and Apple for this and Google for that.
And it is not great, but it has effectively saved Americans from the worst fate of it is all just one company, which is extremely dangerous for all the reasons. If you listen to Geek Nights, you are the kind of person who can appreciate how absolutely dangerous that is.
One last tiny news, right? So I wrote a whole thing about it in the forum, in the camera thread. You can go read there to get a longer story about this. But Leica, which is a luxury camera brand, right? Basically the Rolex of cameras. There is a camera that they made, a film camera, that is very popular, the Leica M6. They made it from like 1984 to 2002, right? And used ones are expensive and in demand because pretty much all film photography stuff is expensive and in demand. But this camera in particular, even more expensive and in demand and not easy to get, despite being in production for so long, etc. And what Leica, there was a rumor that they were going to make something like it, again, right? To sort of satisfy the market, right? That was clearly appearing. And the rumors turn out to have been true. They did re-release this camera, right? Effectively almost identical to the camera that they stopped making 20 years ago. Except the price is $5,500, but it's expensive as fuck, right?
So,
you're not gonna buy one.
So $5,500, just for context, that would be the price of 2 cinema 4K camcorders.
Yeah, pretty much, right? It's ridiculous. And then all it is a 35 millimeter analog still photo camera rangefinder, right? That's it. However, the thing I want to, you can read all the details about this that I wrote on the forum, or
I will link to Scott's forum post. It's really good.
There's thousands of YouTube videos people have made on the internet already talking about what's going on here. But the thing that I want to focus on for the show, imagine if like Nintendo was like, we keep seeing people buying used NESs on eBay. Let's just bring the NES back into production. Just fucking NESs, identical to 1990s NESs. Just like, they're the same.
But maybe they've got HDMI out on the back. Like,
right. It's like, no, not even HDMI out on the back. It's the same fucking thing. Right? And just put it back on the shelves on the stores. It's like, what if, I don't know, what's another one? That's some old nerd.
God, it wasn't Bianchi, but
Apple was just like, you know what? We're just going to start making original iPods again. iPod Classics. They're not any different from the iPod Classics back in the day.
I don't have a link to it handy. I saw there was some
spinning wheel,
some small company that made like touring bicycles in the 70s. It's just like making more bikes that are identical to their old 70s bikes. They're not better than modern bikes, and they're more expensive than modern bikes, but they are basically like replicas of the bikes they made in the 70s.
Yep. So that's what's happening here. I guess the only difference is that this product is indeed a timeless product. I would get one if it wasn't $300.
Yeah. I feel like a few $1,000s would make like a couple thousand-ish plus.
Considering the digital camera that I could get for that amount of money.
True, yeah. What did for $5,000-ish? What fucking DSLR are we gonna buy? Like,
the best.
Get one of those ones with like the sensors as big as your fist. Just
right, especially since the cost of film is going up. Right.
Yep.
It's like, you know.
I am actually looking at buying a new DSLR because you know what? My DSLR is my old GX1.
You want my GH5?
Let me do a little research. I kind of want a newer one for a bunch of reasons. I want a big old sensor.
Very new.
We'll see. Maybe. I'm not opposed. I got to think on it because the main thing is the GX1 has a pretty small sensor and it's really old. But 2, it does not have HDMI output, so I can't even use it as just like a regular camera.
This one has a full-size HDMI output.
It also it can record video, but it's locked. It can only record 20-ish minutes because of that old European.
Camera can record infinite-length video until you run out of battery and/or memory.
Yep. I will decide. I might take you up on that after I do a little research and pricing, and I might make you an offer. But stay tuned, because I need a new DSLR. I am taking photos again, and the GX1 is not good enough. It is too old.
Yeah.
However, if anyone wants a DSLR, like I will give my GX1 away pretty cheap, maybe free, because it's a fine camera, unless you know why it's not. And if you don't know why it's not, it's still better than your iPhone camera.
Well, I think the problem is that camera specifically is no longer in the category of being better than a phone camera. Right?
Yeah, it is only better than a phone camera if you are going to put lenses on it, and I'm keeping my lenses, so. I ain't giving up those lenses. I spent a lot of money on those.
Those lenses will work on the camera that I can give you.
Yeah, they will.
If you go buy a camera with a different sensor, those lenses aren't going to do anything.
Yep. See, what lenses do I get left? I got the super fast. I got the fancy pancake. I got that really big but cheap zoom lens that I bought from you, and I got one anamorphic, and that's it. Anyway,
lens.
I got it cheap, and it's scratched.
Okay.
Put a little marker. We'll skip that news. Okay. But anyway, things of the day. So in 1995, there was some software called Microsoft 3D Movie Maker, which I was vaguely aware of, but I never used it.
Never heard of it before today.
Yep, it's pretty good actually, but it looks like it was from 1995. Like if you look at a random screenshot of this thing, and you are as old as us, you will say that is from the mid 90s, 100%. But it's pretty good software that you can use to basically do low budget 3D animation. Kind of better than you would think. Like, this is way better than you are imagining, considering it's 1995. And my thing of the day is that Microsoft, at the urging of some cool people, has actually done something amazing. They went through all the hassle of sorting out all the licensing and open source nonsense and everything. They have open sourced it, released the code. You can use it, you can run it, you can make memes with it. It is out there. And it looks like people are already contributing to this project to enhance it. So if you want to make like your steamed hams meme in some 1995 software, there is a niche for you. This is the cool part of open source software. I really wish more companies were willing to put forth the effort to do this kind of thing. So what do you got?
So I think I had a recent thing of the day where somebody took a word processor and hooked it up as like a terminal, so they would like type on the word processor, it would go to the terminal.
Oh yeah, that was a cool thing of the day. I remember that one.
On the paper, right? Well, here's somebody, back in the day, right, when word processors were a thing, they were a lot cheaper than computers.
Oh
they
yeah,
were a lot simpler, right? Actual computer needed all kinds of extra stuff in there. Mostly storage was the big expense in those days, right?
I mean, at that time, the fanciest thing we had was an electric typewriter, which was way easier to use than the old manual one. We couldn't even afford a word processor.
Also, yeah. But anyway, so here's somebody. They have the title of the article is Mini 5 Word Crusher. Apparently, this old Japanese PWP 50HA NEC Mini 5HA, right, is a portable CRT-based word processor with a built-in printer and floppy drive, 3.5-inch floppy drive. And I guess somewhat secretly and undocumentedly, this actually was running CPM. If you don't know what CPM is, it's this operating system, control program monitor, that was basically the operating system for Intel 8080, processors before DOS came out. It was like what people used on PCs, 80X whatever chips before there was DOS, right? They use CPM, which is made by, Digital Research Group, which are incorporated, whatever, which is not the same company as Digital Equipment Corp. That alphas. That was a completely different thing. And so because this word processor runs CPM, you can use it like a computer, even though it's a word processor, and try to run software on it and such. And that's exactly what this person does. I think that's pretty cool, right? This would be like, if you took like some Internet of Things computer, right? Like, some fucking toaster that has Wi-Fi, and you actually, I guess people do run Doom on those things, but like, I guess it's like that, but the device is really, really old, and it's even more impressive in some ways that they were able to...
Some days you'll be like, I got DOS running on an Abacus. It takes a while, but it works.
Does it have a transistor? Then I can make it run Doom.
I made Doom out of nothing but NAND gates.
Yep. One of them. A gate.
In the meta moment.
And a clock.
The GeekNights Book Club book was minty. We have finished it. The episode is up. It's the whole trilogy. It's great. You should read it. It'll take you a couple hours. You want to talk about Space University and Space Jellyfish, who are kind of like Klingons? There's good stuff in there. We had a good time.
Mm-hmm.
The
new book club book is A Leaf the Unseen by G. Willow Wilson.
And GeekNights
I haven't read any pages yet, so
I have not read any pages yet either, but I did buy it.
Okay.
So Scott can make the post. I still got to link the episode to the old post, which I will do tonight at some point because I forgot to do that last week, and I just remembered as I'm looking at our website. So yeah, GeekNights Book Club. We are fully past the Genji era. There will be regular book club episodes from this point forward, and it's good timing because winter's coming. We will be, maybe me and Scott, maybe just me, probably both of us, because it's a road trip and a day trip. On Sunday at PAX Unplugged, there is a GeekNights panel that is an updated version of an old panel that they specifically asked us to do, as opposed to the new one.
December 4th.
Yep. So this panel is titled, Why is this game taking 4 hours? It's an updated version of Take Your Fucking Turn, but there are some significant updates that I think are worth adding to that panel. Also, full disclosure, that deck, the slides for that panel took more effort than most Geek Night panels we have ever done, so I gotta fucking I gotta do that panel more times, so. But otherwise, we will probably, since the panel's on Sunday, we will only be at PAX Unplugged on Sunday, so do not come to PAX expecting us to play games with you on Friday and Saturday. I suspect we will drive in, do the panel, walk around the con in masks, hang out, drive home at the end of the day. I will be at ZenkaiCon very likely.
To be happening. Yeah.
Yep. I mean, the driving makes it easier.
Looking at my calendar, I think it can happen. Maybe.
Yeah, I'll just drive you there. That is such a short drive.
Huge resurgence of COVID, which could happen.
It very much could. At least PAX Unplugged is still a mask and vaccination required event. However,
that's true.
I urge all of you, I cannot stress this enough, get the new COVID booster. Too many people, even smart people I know, weren't paying attention and don't realize it's out. It is super effective against all known Omicron variants. That is not to say
non-Omicron ones, though.
XBB is an Omicron variant apparently, and there are multiple credible reports, real reporting that the new booster is extremely effective against XBB.
Okay.
My anecdata is that
that's true.
A huge number of people who were at an indoor unmasked work event that I was at all got COVID right after that event. All of them got it like there.
Got it. I have families that got it.
And I was there unmasked with all of those individuals, and all of them got it, and I did not. And the only difference between the people who got it and the people who didn't is 100% of the people who did not get it had the booster, and 100% of the people who got it did not have the booster. That is anecdata. Dude, that is not a study.
How many
is
people were at this event?
Like 40. So it is anecdata. That is, do not say, I am not saying if you get the booster, you can throw all caution to the wind. Do not get me wrong. I am simply saying that booster is extremely effective and you should get it to protect yourself regardless of the level of precautions you continue to take. It's weird to me that a lot of people do not realize that booster is available.
Okay.
It also will not be free after December 31st because Republicans blocked the bill that would continue the funding.
Well, you got insurance, and it could be effectively free.
If you have insurance, it'll be free. If you don't have insurance, starting December 31st, COVID shots are not free anymore. Thank the Republican Party for that.
Okay. All right. So, this not so long main bit, but something that's been on my mind lately, because I'm not going to tell any of these actual anecdotes specifically, but
I will tell generalized anecdotes as well, but I will not name names and I'll leave out specifics. But
I have
some of you who are listening probably know I'm talking about you, FYI.
I have recently come into contact with many anecdotes from real people I know, as well as strangers, of people who have gotten into trouble and drama in their lives, strife and general badness, sometimes deserved, sometimes undeserved, because, right, and I don't want to blame the victim here, right, but all of these dramas and all of these anecdotes could have been avoided if the people whose cell phones, smartphones, were involved in the drama had been handled the way I personally handle my smartphone. Right?
Yep.
So I want to just get the word out there, right? People might think that these things I'm saying are ridiculous or too much work or a pain in the ass, but it's like, yeah, you say that until one of these dramas happens to you. And then you'll say, damn, I wish I would have listened to Scott and handled my phone securely and carefully the way that Scott does.
Yep. And there are
an example anecdote, right? We'll do one, a deserved one and an undeserved one.
Before you do the anecdote, the one thing I'll say is there are two categories of these. I think it's worth just noting that because I think our anecdotes will fall into one of the two categories. Category 1 involves access to the phone in any capacity. And category 2 involves the phone being itself insecure or compromised in some fashion.
Yep. Okay. So anecdote 1, somebody was at a restaurant and their phone was on the table, right? And they were with somebody. And they got messages on the phone, and the messages popped up on the lock screen.
Like they do not do for me.
And the person sitting across from them saw the messages out of the corner of their eye. They weren't necessarily able to read the entire message, but they saw who the message was from. And now they knew the person sitting across from them was in contact with person X, and it caused a drama, right? That's anecdote number 1. Anecdote number 2. Right? A person, was, left their phone in the living room and went to the bathroom or something, right? And another person was snooping and was being bad and took the phone, unlocked it and snooped and saw shit that caused a drama. Right?
Yep.
Because the phone wasn't locked properly. All right. Oh, I can add one more, right? Here's one more. Somebody, right, had there was like a kid or somebody, right, who wanted to watch Netflix, right? So they unlocked their phone and gave it to the kid to watch Netflix, right? But there was an adult nearby and they saw stuff on the phone, maybe popped up as notifications, right?
Yeah.
And that was stuff that person didn't, the owner of the phone didn't want them to see.
I have
A drama ensued.
anecdote number 4 that is almost identical to your previous anecdote, but instead of strangers saw something, it's kids saw hardcore pornography in another app that was open in the background.
Whoa.
That was related to me a couple months ago by someone who is not in our circles, but is in other circles it is no one we know. No one you know.
Okay, so what does Scott do, and what does I'm 99% sure Rim also do?
I will be shocked if there is anything that we disagree on in this episode.
I will be very shocked. Okay, so how do you avoid any of these potential things happening to you in your life? Rule number 1, absolutely nobody other than you, right? You as in you, not your significant other, not your sibling, not your child, not your parent, not the government, not a police officer.
If it is Star Trek and you are transporter cloned and there are 2 of you, you should have separate cell phones.
That's right. Nobody other than you should ever touch your fucking phone when it is unlocked. Ever. Not in an emergency, not in you're in the middle of a house on fire. There is no situation, none, not any ridiculous hypothetical.
I would back up a little bit in that access it, because most phones have you can still call 911 even if it's not yours capability.
Exactly. That's why I said when it's unlocked.
Yeah, okay, when it's unlocked is the key.
That's right.
Because if you're choking to death in your apartment and it's on fire and I don't have my phone on me, I'm pulling your phone out of your pocket. I'm calling 911 with it.
As long as your phone is locked, as long as your phone is locked, it's okay to let somebody else touch it, as long as they're not gonna just run away with it.
Yep.
Because as locked properly, we'll get to that, right? But both Android and iPhone have a feature where you can activate the camera while the phone is locked. So you can hand it to a stranger to take your photo, no problem. Just don't hand them an unlocked one. Make sure it's locked, open the camera app from the lock screen and give it to them that way, so that they can't access any of your shit. Right?
Yep.
If someone needs to access emergency info, you can press on an iPhone, you can press the button on the right side, I think 5 times fast, and that will bring them to a screen where they can make emergency calls, access your medical ID, turn the phone off.
You know what I just realized? If I open the camera on an iPhone from the lock screen, it stays locked, but my photo roll is available in there.
Exactly.
So even that is a risky business.
Well, I think, no, you shouldn't be able to.
My phone is unlocked. I just open the camera app from the button on the lock screen without unlocking the phone.
Yep.
And my photo roll is still there.
My photo roll is not there. It's just a gray square.
Weird. I wonder if there's a setting I have changed.
You might have a setting. All right, so if that's a setting.
That's a setting I'm going to figure out and fix right the fuck now.
Yeah, mine is the bottom left corner when I open the camera app from the lock screen is just a gray square. No one can look through my photos if I hand them to my
Granted,
phone.
The reason this is not a problem for me is that I will not even hand my phone to someone to take a photo with it under any circumstances.
That's also perfectly fine. Right?
Because I do not want someone to steal my phone, nor do I want to risk it, because my phone is just a computer as far as I'm concerned.
Right? Exactly. So that's rule number 1. Rule number 2, all right, so you talk about that. So don't give anyone your phone while it's unlocked. Don't, ever. Not under any circumstance. None. There is no reason ever. Get your own damn phone, right?
Yep.
Not reason number 2, how do you lock your phone properly? Well, you want to make sure that the phone locks itself after a brief period of unuse, right? You want to make sure you push the button to lock it every time you stop using it.
Just like any Windows computer. If you ever walk away from your screen, Control-Alt-Delete or Control-L or whatever, lock it.
It's okay to use the Face IDs or the Touch IDs, right? Nobody's actually going to copy your fingerprint or whatever.
So what I do there is I use Face ID, and I have my sort of baseline level of security. But anytime I even have a hint that I will be in any type of situation where anything squirrely could happen, I'll often disable that just for a while. But that's situational. But
there are also settings where, Face ID will let you unlock and do these things, but to do other things, it's going to ask the password again. Right?
Yep. Occasionally, if my phone is definitely on me, I will let it stay unlocked because it's in proximity of my watch. But that is a situation where my phone will be in my direct knowing custody at all moments. I would not even let it sit on a table.
Yep. Exactly. All right. So how do you make sure the phone is locked properly? Well, make sure it's locked, like we just said, right? If it's unlocked, and you didn't realize it was unlocked, well, now you're in trouble, right?
Yep.
So But the locking mechanism, right? A lot of people just use like that Android thing with the grid or a 4-digit pin, right? And those are kind of secure, kind of. They're good, right? A lot of people aren't locking the phone, which is really bad, right? But that's okay. But the 4-digit one, people who are close to you are going to, not through malice, right? But just see over your shoulder often because they're with you a lot.
Yep.
And they're eventually going to know your 4-digit code unless you change it often.
Hey, you live in a building with an elevator? Whoever is the security for your building has probably seen you type that code in at least once.
Right. I use a whole goddamn ass passphrase, right? Is it a pain in the ass when I have to type it in? Yes. But do I do it anyway? Also, yes.
So I made one deviation from that just during COVID, before there was a feature that would let you like Face ID work with a mask, where if I know my phone will not leave my touch at any point, like while we were in lockdown, I switched to using the 4-digit only during that time because I was often unlocking my phone while it was in my hand with a mask on repeatedly. But that was a temporary weird situation where I was rarely going anywhere and my phone was literally always in my pocket. But even then, it was
edge cases are not really the right where people are getting not the edge cases. If you're only getting the edge cases wrong, you're fine, right?
Yep.
People are not getting the base correct, right?
Yeah, because like the edge case would be the 4-digit code is easier to hack your phone with if someone steals it. That's not a concern for most people. The concern is the nosy neighbor knows your
plus characters. Like you're not nobody is going to be able to guess that, right?
Oh, my actual passphrase is such a fucking pain in the ass to type on my phone.
Yeah, the keyboard, it's fine. All right, so then on top of that, iPhones, I don't know about Android, but iPhone has a setting where if somebody tries to type the passphrase 10 times and gets it wrong 10 times, the phone will erase itself. And you're like, oh my God, that's so dangerous. You know, you'd lose all your stuff. It's like, no, I won't. I have backups. What do I care?
Yep.
Right? iCloud is perfect backups. I presume Google has some perfect backup mechanism that's equivalent for Android phones. If they don't, why'd you get an Android phone? That's like a necessity, but I assume they do.
They got to have something like that. I am of the mind, if anything tries to enter any device I own too many times, ideally, I want that device to fully self-destruct if possible.
Yeah, but yeah, the phone will just erase itself if someone tries and gets it wrong 10 times, which I encourage enabling that setting, right? And it's like this, the worst thing that can happen to you is you lose 30 minutes of your time loading a backup, right? Because you back up often, right? Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
There should never be anything on your phone that it would be trouble if you lost it, with the sole possible exception of your 2FA nonsense, which you're going to have a different backup for.
Yeah, that's why I use the YubiKey. Got
Yep.
a separate thing for that, yeah. Okay, and now the final piece of the puzzle, right? Anecdote number 1, someone was looking at the notifications, at least on iPhone. I don't know about Android.
Android has a similar feature. Most people disable it, but it's there.
Yeah, when you configure notifications for an app, right, there is a setting. It's per app, but you should be able to set the default for all apps to be the same thing.
Yep. Basically, you can control which kinds of notifications will show up with content on the lock screen versus which ones will just show up with a notification from this app happened with no content versus it does not show up.
So here's, for example, my bank app, right? You go to on iPhone, you go to settings, notifications, then you choose the app you want to set, right? So I choose my bank's app, and then it says at the bottom, lock screen appearance. And it says, show previews. And there's 3 options, always, never, and when unlocked. So you want to set that to either when unlocked or never, right? Because showing previews would mean that the notification on the lock screen would actually contain real information, like your deposit went through or the actual contents of a text message, right? If you turn that off, instead, let's say Rim texts me and I have it set to not show previews and the phone is locked, it'll simply say on the lock screen, incoming text message. It won't say from who it is or what the message is, but I'll just know I got a text message and I have to unlock the phone to see what is in that message.
Now, is that a pain? Well, no, because 1, my phone unlocks instantly if I so much as look at it. 2, I have a watch that also shows me the notification. Watches are a different ballgame because your watch locks itself if you take it off.
Yep. Yeah, don't worry. The watches are not too much of a...
Now, this one is actually not just a drama vector, but an attack vector, because a very easy attack, if your notification show up on the lock screen, is try to log into your friend's account, trigger a password reset, the SMS code goes to their phone that's sitting on the table, you see it on their lock screen, you've got their account now.
Yep.
That is an attack you could do on your friends right now. It's so easy.
If your friend leaves their phone out on a table and you're sitting near it and you have a computer, you could probably log into like their Discord or whatever using SMS without having to do. And it's like, how many times do you hear, oh, my Instagram was hacked? It's probably something like that is what and I had 2FA. Someone was looking at your phone while they did it. It's probably something close to you. That's the most likely scenario. Turn off notification previews and lock your goddamn phone.
Yep.
Beyond that, that's really like if you do those things.
Well, so I can think of a lot of people will say,
but those are the big ones, right?
I think a lot of people are going to try to say like, oh, but I have specialized use case, and I think, yep. And here's why I think we can cut a bunch of those out. So, for example, say there is a shared phone that's used for like on-call stuff at a job. One, every user of that phone should have their own profile. Smartphones support that. Like that's just built in. You can have separate users' accounts just like a computer. Or if it is truly a shared device, then nothing that ever happens on that device should be expected to be private among all the people who are authorized to use that device.
It should. I mean, also that would be a company device managed by MDM, right? That would only have a few apps on it that even work, and would only connect like a VPN all the time to the work network. And it, it's like. And anything that's on it would be information that all the employees using it would need to see, right? It's like if you're on call for like tech support, you want to see what the previous support person was messaging, right? So you might have to pick up some of their cases,
Yep.
And it shouldn't matter because as long as no non-company people access the device, you're all good. And it's up to the company's IT department to manage that with the MDM and whatnot. So you can't, as an employee, you don't have to worry about that. And if you're the IT department, manage your devices properly. That's out of the scope of this episode.
Exactly. A lot of the edge cases people are going to come up with are work-related stuff, which either your company is doing things wrong, or why are you doing personal things on a company device?
Right. Okay, let's say, you are low income, right? And you can only afford one phone, but there are two adults in the house. And
two profiles.
One, yeah.
And the things that you can't split.
You log out of the phone and the other person logs into the phone.
And the things that you can't split, like SMS goes to the phone no matter who's logged in, you both have to be fully aware of the fact that you can both see everything, say it out loud, and agree to it up front.
Yeah, I mean, one thing, I don't think the iPhone actually supports like completely having two total system profiles.
I don't think so. I don't think Android really supports that either. You can't have like a different virtual SIM for two different profiles.
No, but you can swap out, the physical SIM if that's a thing, right?
Yeah.
That's costing money. You're not doing that, right? But you can, like, you can hack around it, right? You can use like the iPhone shortcuts to like log out of everything, right? And the other person can then log into everything that's theirs when you swap the phone back and forth.
Yep.
Right. So they couldn't read your Gmail and you couldn't read theirs, et cetera, et cetera.
Now, conversely, what if you're, in a low income situation and you have one shared phone among a bunch of people in a house, or especially kids? One, it's a good idea if you're going to have kids and you want to give them a device, give them their own dedicated device with their own logins, just like your phone, if you can afford it. And if you can't, have the login for the kids with the kid stuff only, and you do not ever use that for anything. Do not log into your Gmail there.
Yeah, exactly.
So the other side of this is when your phone itself gets compromised in some way, which is also very easy to avoid. One, and this is a not obvious thing, call your cell phone provider, whoever gives you your SIM card, whoever you pay for cellular service, and ask them to lock your SIM. Some companies call it different things, but your SIM, if you tell them you want extra security, they all have some program around that, and it'll just prevent anyone who isn't you from, like, pretending to be you and stealing your SIM and then getting all your SMSs.
Yep, Verizon definitely has something like that. Where it's
every cell provider has something like that.
Like an extra PIN number, and they lock your account, and it's like, so that way, if someone tries to call up Verizon and mess with your account, they're not going to succeed. Right?
And just do it, because how often do you need to mess with
money? They don't charge extra money for this.
Yeah, and how often are you calling like Verizon or T-Mobile to make big changes to your plan? You're not going to need to type that pin in or do anything with it that often. This will save you a lot of hassle, because SIM swapping is really one of the only ways to compromise your cell phone that is not trivially defended against by just not doing stupid things. To put a real font, to really underline it.
Verizon Wireless's website, right? And I went to the security section, and they have user ID, right?
Yeah.
Password. They have home account. Okay, we don't set a account PIN. Set a PIN number to verify your identity when calling customer care. This is different than your voicemail PIN and will become the primary means of verification when you or an account manager contacts us. Then the secret question, I guess, right, for password recovery. 2-factor authentication. Number lock. Protect your mobile number from an authorized transfer. Number transfer PIN. Generate the PIN code you'll need when transferring your mobile number to another service provider, right? So you want to make sure you have an account PIN.
Yep.
You want the number lock enabled, and you want a number transfer PIN generated, and you want the 2-factor authentication enabled.
Yep.
Right? So
you've got to treat that securely, because that is the primary attack that doesn't require someone to trick you to steal things from your phone.
Yep.
Beyond that, it comes down to don't go to extremely shady websites, just like you wouldn't on a computer. And don't
install shady apps.
Yep. If an app asks for weird permissions, don't just block those permissions, uninstall the app. It's probably a bad app.
Yep.
And on Android, that's like, there was recently a scandal where a bunch of certified apps were found to have just full-on malware in them. So on Android, even if the permissions seem fine, if the app seems even remotely shady, don't install it, even if you think it's cool. Like, especially if it's free.
Install apps from like the major companies, right?
Yep.
Adobe, Microsoft, Apple, the big ones, right? And not even all the big ones, right? Not going to install TikTok.
Nope.
Or,
apps actually,
Facebook
specifically, I would say, in my professional opinion, TikTok is a security risk on your phone.
I use the third-party Twitter app. I don't use the real one.
Yep. And let's see. Beyond that, the only other thing I'd say is keep your phone 100% up to date. All the updates that come from Android or Apple, install them immediately. Do not wait. Never skip one. And if your device...
I update my apps. I go every night before I go to bed. It's 2 clicks, 2 taps. I go to App Store, update all, lock, sleep, right?
If your device stops getting security updates because it's too old, get a new device. That device is fucked.
Yep. As soon as they stop provide, that's why that's another great advantage for iPhone is that like my iPhone 7, which is like many years old, kept getting updates until like just now. Like it's like I should have kept it for another year. I mean,
my Sony Xperia
making the mini phone.
My old Sony Xperia was getting Android updates until actually shockingly recently.
Yeah, I mean, the previous I think some of the older Android phones got updates for 3 years, but I think the new ones like Pixel 6, 7, whatever is out now are getting 5 years of updates, which is much closer to Apple levels. But I think Apple's going to be 5+. So.
Yep. And if you are economically challenged in a way that you need a smartphone, you have one that works, but it's not getting updates anymore and you're stuck, the best advice I can give is, 1, don't install apps anymore, like bare minimum apps. If that's the only device you've got, really don't go to a lot of websites unless you really need to. Minimize your use of the things that aren't relatively safe. Like keep using the old Gmail app. Don't install a new email app. Avoid going to websites because every website you go to is a risk that will increase over time. And keep the apps up to date, even if the phone isn't getting up to date. And as soon as you can feasibly do so, get a refurbished phone that'll get security updates, because this is a big risk to you right now.
Yeah, it's like even you can get like an iPhone, like I just said, 7 went out of style. You can get an iPhone 8. I think is still supported.
Yep.
Right? Not for much longer, but if you get an iPhone 9 or 10, those should be cheaper, right? And they should get you a few years into the future, with still getting updates.
And
you don't need to go out and buy an iPhone 14. Right?
Like,
It's not
that's
necessary.
it. If you follow this advice, your phone is never going to cause this kind of problem for you. Like,
Yeah, you will avoid those dramas, even if maybe you're the bad person who deserves to suffer the dramas.
yep.
You won't get caught cheating or whatever bad thing you're up to, or, hopefully good people are following this advice and avoiding drama from bad people, right? Not having bad people in your life get your information and harass you or whatever.
Now, if there are bad people in your life, all I will say is that everything we just said is advice that is not commonly followed. And the inverse of that advice is something that knowledge is power. And I'm going to leave it at that.
There is one I think, edge case that just came back to mind that's worth mentioning at least, is that if your concern is perhaps government related, right? You're worried.
Yeah, I was kind of staying away from state-sponsored actors because we did an episode a long time ago where we talked about the levels of paranoia. Protecting yourself against state actors, there's one level that makes sense, but this is sometimes per app. Like Google has I am a person who might be at risk of foreign governments fucking with me mode. You can put your Google account in. It makes it a real pain in the ass to use your Google account, but it will protect you from fairly extreme threats.
Yeah. So the people that I know who are truly in that sort of, national security situation, they don't use smartphones at all. They avoid the situation that way.
Yep.
And that's understandable and a good idea.
Yep.
Right?
Well, depending on the threat profile, you might have a smartphone that you turn off and put put somewhere when you go to your job or do whatever it is you're doing. A lot of jobs, you leave your smartphone at a desk before you go in.
Right.
Locked, of course.
Stuff is done on a different phone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, but the point is that in that situation where you're worried about some state-sponsored actor, either your state or another state, accessing your stuff, right? The stuff that they're going to be able to access isn't really the stuff that's on your phone. Even if the police take it, if you lock it the way we said and it's updated, it will be mostly difficult for them to get into it. I'm guessing the odds of the police, if they took my phone, they're probably going to type in 10 passwords and erase the phone. That's probably the most likely scenario.
And while there are likely ways to eventually break into an Apple phone that has had that problem, even a newer one, those resources are not going to be expended on most targets.
Yeah, I'm not an important enough target for them to, put in the work to break into the phone, right?
That does lead to one last piece of advice. If you lose your phone, even if you suspect...
Erase it remotely immediately.
Even if you suspect you will find it soon, just fucking erase it. Use the tool. Android has a tool. Apple has a tool. Fuck that phone immediately. If you find it, you can always restore from backup. The one time I ever lost my cell phone was at a MagFest a long time ago. I got to tabletop. My phone wasn't in my pocket. I stood up immediately, delaying the board game I was playing, much to the chagrin, Scott wasn't there, of the other people. And I retraced my steps. And if I had gotten back to the hotel and not found my phone, I was erasing it that instant. Thankfully, I found it literally outside of tabletop. It fell out when the MagFest staff accosted me to make sure I didn't have any liquids in my backpack.
Right. But anyway, the point is that you're not worried about the data on the phone so much. That's mostly safe, right? Mostly, not entirely, mostly. But data that's in the cloud is not so safe from the state, who can maybe subpoena it or convince the company to give it to them or who knows what, right? Especially if it's unencrypted. So if there is unencrypted data in the cloud, I mean, that's not really a phone concern anymore. Now it's just a general personal data security issue. But you have to be aware of, for example, iMessage, right? iMessage is end-to-end encrypted, right? So nobody can intercept an iMessage message in transit and read it except for you or the other person talking, right? If it's on your phone, it's encrypted. If anyone breaks into your phone, they can't read your iMessages unless they can unlock your phone.
Yep.
Right?
When I need to communicate securely, I use Signal.
Right. But if you use iMessage and you also use iCloud backup to back up your phone, and you back up your iMessage, the iCloud backup of your iMessage is not so encrypted in a way Apple could read those messages, which means the government could read those messages if they forced Apple to give them to them. So you might want, you have to research all your individual apps for how they handle cloud data, what's encrypted, what's not, right? And only send sensitive messages using means, right, that will be entirely encrypted the whole way and never stored anywhere in an unencrypted, accessible fashion, right? Maybe if you're, iMessage is one example, right? You might be in a situation where you feel that you're okay using iMessage, but you tell iCloud, you either turn off iCloud backups or you tell the phone not to back up iMessage, which might suck if your phone has to be erased or you breaks and you load backups and you lose all your history of messages.
But if the threat profile to you is high enough, like in Signal, say I were communicating in a way that was threatening. While my normal life, I keep archives of every conversation I ever have. Like, I have the ICQ, I have logs going back to, like, I have the first conversation I ever had with Scott online, archived. I have everything. But you know what I don't have? I do not have Signal messages because those delete themselves 48 hours after I read them, or if I don't read them. 48 hours, they're gone.
All right. That's it. Mostly the basic things we talked about earlier and avoid the dramas of those very real anecdotes. Those, I sort of gave as few details as possible to protect the innocent and the guilty.
Yep.
But those are real anecdotes that these things are happening frequently. Do not be, I don't want to blame any victims, but, avoid being the victim this week. It might be a pain in the ass to deal with your phone, typing in passwords all the time,